Gentlemen, welcome to the Free State Chamber of Commerce and Industry Tuesday night live webinars. You are with the Free State Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the preeminent voice advocating for business development within the Free State region. We've got 8 fundamental sectors that we focus on, and our fundamental role as an institution is to defend and to promote the interest of its members. Our members, as we've discussed over the past couple of 11 weeks, is divided into 8 main groups representing the major sectors within the Free State. And that is the commerce, the industry, financial services, tourism, logistics and transportation, ICT, property development, and other businesses. It is absolutely wonderful to have you guys with us here tonight, with our audience live on Facebook and also interacting with you guys here. Now, obviously tonight we've got a special guest that our public relations manager is going to just introduce to you guys. So Amelia's going to introduce him to you guys, and we're going to speak about leadership within entrepreneurship, which is absolutely, for me, a fundamental concept that we need to always have a discussion about. Now, with that being said, I'm just going to allow Amelia to do the introduction of our guest.
Thank you very much, Renaldo. Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Amelia Matisela. I'm the Public Relations Manager for the Chamber. Now, I'd like to introduce you guys our guest speaker for the evening, which is Mr. Andrew Tsuro. He is the Chief Executive at eHub. He's one of 2018's top 10 global young future leaders recognized by HRCom's Leadership Excellence Awards. His work credits includes mentoring, communication and leadership development programs at General Electric SA and Mercedes-Benz SA. Over and above this, he has done extensive training at corporates across Southern Africa, such as your Vodacom, Exaro, SARS, Standard Bank, and many more. Now, Andrew is a firm believer in the mantra, excuses or results. He believes in Napoleon Hill's statement that whatever the mind conceives and believes, the mind can achieve. Now, this is evident by his numerous achievements, from recently being Southern Africa's Hall of Fame Bright Spark Award winner, Golden Goose Award for Team Leadership, to mention just a few. Last but not least, Andrew was recognized twice with Distinguished Toastmaster Award for Excellence in Communication and Leadership. It is the highest accolade bestowed by Toastmasters International. Leading up to this, he has been actively involved in creating platforms for leadership development in corporates such as NASPA's, MultiChoice, Standard Bank, and many more. Mr. Andrew Tsuro, I'd like to welcome you on behalf of the Chamber, and it is an honor and an absolute pleasure to have you on board and joining us tonight. You may take your presentation, sir. Thank you.
Good evening, and as they say, anything that happens in a space in this continent, it is dependent on 2 main arenas. Have you ever thought about a situation of what are the 2 main elements that are pivotal in the development of this continent? I put it to you that it's leadership and entrepreneurship. Have you ever asked yourself then what those skills are all about? And you might want to know, if you engage with me today on a conversation around what leadership we need to be developing and ensuring that we see in this continent. If you were to ask me, I would say to you, there are key skills that some of us might want to look into, as well as ensuring that we become greater. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe strongly that in this continent, just like Cape Town was experiencing a drought of water not so long ago, our continent is experiencing a drought of leadership and entrepreneurship. But wait a minute, isn't it ironic to you that a city covered in 2 oceans was experiencing a drought of water? Similarly, isn't it worrying that a continent with so much resources and human capital is experiencing a drought of leadership and entrepreneurship? What I do know is that the water in Cape Town from those 2 oceans was not fit, healthy enough for the Cape Townians to drink. And perhaps maybe the quality or the right kind of leaders and the right kind of entrepreneurship that we need in this continent is scarce. So what then? What do we do now? I would like to propose that we start drawing towards leadership in entrepreneurship. Now, what is it that you do? And Simon Sinek, a leadership expert, always reminds us with the question, start with why. Now, I'm going to ask you to engage me, interest me, and possibly share with me what or why do you do what you do. In the chat box, please feel free to share with me in a minute. Why do you do what you do? Why do you do what you do in the chat box?
I'm a fireball.
In the chat box, why do you do what you do?
I saw, I came, I conquered, or should I say I saw, I conquered, I came. This little chico on
about 30 seconds going. Why do you do
now big bang boogie, get that kitty little noogie in a nice little shave. I gave Susie a little pat up on the booty and she turned around and said, walk this way. I was born in a plane. Mama said that every
why do you do what you do? The last 10 seconds.
I'm the best you've ever had. If you think I'm burning out, I never am. I'm on fire.
Time up. And as anticipated, that is a difficult question for many people to respond to. If you look into it in a minute, essentially it would have been easy for us to respond as to what it is that we do. Someone shared with me recently or a while ago that if you ask yourself what Nike is in the business of, you are prone to quickly suggest and share with us that maybe Nike is in the business of creating sportswear or producing sportswear for great athletes. But if you take note, their advertisement is really focused on celebrating great athletes. In this case, the same thing comes into question if you were to ask yourself, why might it be just difficult for you to come up with the right words of what you do? And if you're able to look into that, perhaps we might have our conversation coming from the point of understanding our purpose. And if we are able to do this, it may be necessary for us to then engage on the 3 essential skills that I feel if we as entrepreneurs are able to harness, promote, and infuse or influence, we might be able to gain a greater stand in our success as entrepreneurs. And these 3 essential skills are just around the vision, the mission, and our values. Possibly many of us owning businesses and owning enterprises have possibly overlooked some of these elements. But today, as a leader in an organization, I want to encourage you to think about the impact that you could have had or the impact that you could have in the growth of your business if you inculcated these 3 elements. Let's start with the first one. What is your end in sight? The vision. Now, I did a bit of learning and I realized that even our dictionary reminds us that it is our vision is our ability to think about or plan the future with imagination or wisdom. Imagine if you had the foresight, or imagine if you had the foresight back in the early 2090s or maybe mid-2019 to see that there might be a shift of something coming. Or perhaps, for many of you, you may have assumed that after 21 days since the 27th of March, life would go back to normal. And you were stunned to realize that you are in this for the next 6, 7, possibly 8 continuous months as we are today as a result of COVID-19. Imagine if you had had the vision to plan the future with the imagination or wisdom of what might come through and impact you. As leaders, our challenge is to imagine a future that is prosperous for our people that we serve, as well as for the the place or the environment that we're getting ourselves into. What is the world going to be like in the near future? Maybe the near future is here. And what is our world like right now? Are you able to discern what it is that we need as a community, as a city, as a country, as a chamber in this space? What is it that we need to be able to serve the people that we say we serve? And our vision is the end in sight. Every leader has to have that foresight to look into how you bring it to life. Now, many of you have got a vision statement, and how often are you able, or are you sharing that inspirational statement of your idealistic, emotional future of your company? If you were to ask the people that are stakeholders in your company, how well articulated would they share your vision and what it is that you want to achieve? Because leaders have that foresight to share the vision of what it is that they want to see, and they get people to buy into it because we know what our end in sight is like. And sometimes it might be something that you want to think about as to how then we can work around it. I believe that if we think this world is yet to be a better place, perhaps we might be in for another surprise, because things keep going down the hill. And maybe what we might want to think and plan for is for us to be much more intrigued into what the second step may be if we start thinking about tomorrow a lot more. Maybe we might want to consider what it is that we can do to prepare ourselves, to arm ourselves for the much interesting waves that might be coming through after this period. Our digital age is here, and we are challenged consistently to think about what is it that where are we taking our people to, and what's the end in sight like? Are we going to be continuously needing venue halls such as 200, 300 people seater, or is our future in front of a screen like this that will make us become much closer, much tighter than ever before? Are your services geographic centric, or are you threatened by the idea of a digital world where I can get the same service without having to transport anyone via plane or rail or road simply to get this very same service? I'm in the training industry, and the COVID period has reminded me time and time again that I'm not indispensable as I thought I was before. Because all of a sudden, the services that I offered in the nearby surrounding that I was could easily now be offered digitally by someone in China, America, or any other part of the world. And competition was much stiffer. So, in your case, what are some of those things that you can think about that are the end in sight? What's your end in sight? And how is it affected by the changes that you're looking into? And once you are clear on that, then maybe we can start moving. But as they always say, as you plan to move, you might want to ask yourself, how do we get there? Now, as businesses, a lot of times, we always are encouraged to come up with a business model, a solid plan. But in this ever-changing world, is a solid plan good enough? You might want to think about coming up with an agile business model. Something that is flexible enough to change and withstand the changes that are going to be happening so that your business can remain sustainable. And if we are going to be at any point in time going to keep our businesses to a stretch, such that one year, one time, your great-grandkids might be able to look back and think about it as a generational gift to them. As I always watched sometimes on the television where you find adverts that say serving people since 1802. I always wonder if at any point in time, your business is going to be mentioned a century later as serving our clients, serving our community since 2020. Is it that far-fetched? And if we are going to ever get there, how do we get there? Now, I've learned that a mission is what becomes imperative. Think about it as a road trip. Your vision is to get to the Free State, or maybe, let's take an instance, my favorite, Cape Town. When you get to Cape Town, how do you recognize that you're in Cape Town? Maybe the mountainous Table Mountains, or simply the humidity there. When you look into it, it's essential that you always have that end in sight of the mountain, the Table Mountains, natural wonder of the world. But as you look into that, the key is now from where you are, how do you get there? The direction you take becomes essential. Our mission is the direction you take. Once you're clear on the direction you take, you're looking into your open opportunity for you to identify also the vehicle to use. Now, there are many ways to get to Cape Town. You could go to Cape Town via rail. You can get to Cape Town via road. You can get to Cape Town, as most people now do, via the airplane. The question is, are you about to take the long scenic route via road maybe, or maybe a relaxed, comfortable route via rail? Or are you about to get there as quick as a flash in 2 hours' time that you're in Cape Town, if you're coming from Johannesburg, that is? And the challenge is the same for you as an entrepreneur. The vision that you've set up as a leader, how are you directing people to get there? What direction are you using? You might want to check that the direction that you're taking is definitely going to lead you to that destination. Otherwise, you might find yourself going in the wrong direction in the fastest possible manner. And what does this entail? It entails you just having an assurance of observing what might be happening. For example, if you're going to take a road trip, you might want to observe the signs that you see. You might want to also ensure that you're tracking it to know 100 k's away from Cape Town, or at least 5 k's away from Cape Town, so that you are able to identify your route. As a leader, your ability to understand what you might need to get to a certain position might be essential. And in many cases, what I believe that as entrepreneurs we need to be considerate of, which is exactly what as leaders we need to have in our arsenal, are the people. The people are the vehicle drivers, and they will take us there. We lead people, and people manage processes. In many cases, we juxtapose that. We manage people and then try and lead processes. That might not be a winning formula, especially if you are going to make that end in sight. So think about it. What in your business, or how in your business are you getting towards your vision? What methods, what vehicle are you using to get towards where you need to be getting to? Because maybe, just maybe, your business model is not agile enough to suit and fit the roads that you're going to be traveling. I always remind people that we shouldn't be learning that entrepreneurship is a nasty sport. Rather, we should be asking ourselves, how do we overcome the challenges? Your tires, your wheels must be so well polished, so well prepared for the roads that you're going to take, whether they are potholes or they are bumpy roads, whether they're dusty or they're not. Your vehicle must be prepared to go through the course. Because once you go in, we are looking forward to you. And at the end of the day, it's not just about you, but the community that you serve. Isn't it all about the client, the customer? You might want to think about it. Just as in leadership, it's not about me. It's not about you. It's about the people you serve. And that becomes the key element. And last but not least, the third element, your values. Now, I have said it before and I continuously say it. A leader with no values, to me, is like a person without a backbone. You stand for nothing and you fall for everything. In entrepreneurship, are you a jack of all trades, or are we going to recognize you for something? Too often we become so desperate that we want to venture into anything and everything because apparently we must have at least 7 incomes. There's a notion that reminds us that we might want to focus in what we were looking out for. Follow one course until successful. In your business, do you have a backbone as a leader? Or are you falling for everything? Too often in leadership currently, we have made leadership sound synonymous in our continent with corruption. And could it be because there is no backbone? We can fall for anything and everything that comes our way? Or might it be a necessity for us to identify how essential it has been for us to identify our own backbone so that we can contribute to the society that desperately needs us? In our continent, there are 2 main things that I believe you and I should be driving, promoting, and most importantly, engaging on: leadership and entrepreneurship. Not so long ago, Cape Town was experiencing a drought of water. Isn't it ironic to you that a city covered in 2 oceans was experiencing a drought of water? But I put it to you that the quality of water the Cape Townians needed to drink was limited, was scarce. And similarly, in our continent, I believe and put it to you that the quality of leaders and entrepreneurs that we need are scarce. And I trust that you and I are going to have at least the vision to realize that we need to be growing and looking in the end in sight. What does the end look like? We need to be identifying our mission and being clear on our mission. Because once you've got the mission, follow that mission. Focus with your values. Because I strongly believe that a leader without a backbone or a leader with no values is no different to a person without a backbone. May you be that leader that we need in this society. And because in our continent, entrepreneurship and leadership are the 4 most key elements that we need if we are to be prominent. I dream of a continent where you and I are key stakeholders in ensuring that that continent that you used to know as a continent full of potential becomes a continent that has become prominent for leading the rest of the world. Will you accept that mission and take it on with us? Over to you. Did you realize that you're on mute?
Apologize. There we go. I apologize. Okay, so now I'm not on mute anymore. Andrew, thank you so much for the fact that you came on board to share us a bit regarding the perspectives that you guys have regarding leadership within entrepreneurship. Andrew, just from my side, there's just a couple of things that I would like us just to touch on. And we're going to, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go into a question and answer segment just now. But Andrew and myself, we're just going to have a little chat about the fundamental instruments that is used in leadership and entrepreneurship. Andrew, maybe if you can speak to us just a bit more about the difference between a leader that is an entrepreneur and a leader that is a businessman, and also the difference between those two. Maybe if you can just share with us regarding that as well, with a growth perspective as well.
Thank you for that question. Tough one, I must say. From my own perspective, let's start with entrepreneurship and leadership. So, I mean, entrepreneurship and business. Many times we want to put them in the same basket. I'm okay with that. However, if we want to be very technical about it, we might want to realize that entrepreneurship is really about that skydiver who really goes in for the risk and the kill, and the rewards are immense, or the fall is hard. So the risk taking in entrepreneurship usually is much higher than the one in business. In business, you're looking at an opportunity where someone comes in and realizes an opportunity to make more money or more profit. The model might always be there. So for example, you might want to consider yourself as just a franchise owner of something. You are a business owner, right? Whereas in entrepreneurship, you're possibly thinking about disrupting a system and you're coming in with a new idea, a new concept that changes the scale of things. Think about some of the latest inventions, possibly like Uber, that have changed our transport system, or Airbnb, that has changed the hospitality and accommodations setting. Those people who took us through that might want to be called entrepreneurs. But once you own an Uber car, you might want to just consider yourself a business person, perhaps. Or once you own an Airbnb, a set of Airbnbs, you may consider you as a business person. The model is there. You're simply utilizing the resources that are available, or at least the ideas that are there. Now, from a leadership perspective, obviously that now constitutes that if you're a leader in entrepreneurship, I would expect a little bit more of innovation from you. You possibly more of an innovative thinker, an analytical thinker who thinks outside the box, takes risks that hopefully may pay off. Whereas as a leader in a business setting, you're more of a pace-setting entrepreneur or business person who looks into the idea around just ensuring that there is a process, there is a setting that is being followed, that we are able to run with this. You can simply carry through the vision, whereas an entrepreneur might be the one who brings the vision. I hope that answers your question.
It definitely does. It does, and it leads me into just fathoming about the fact that there's in entrepreneurship and also business development, there's this idea of expansion and also contraction and understanding how markets work and how it influences. I think maybe if you can maybe share a bit regarding what you guys are doing at eHub, just with regard to the context that you guys are finding yourself regarding expanding and also the contraction that has taken place. But I also want us to touch on the fact that you mentioned that there are guys that are able to provide services that you normally specialized in. And now the competition, the field has changed. And I think most of our guests that are here as well, I want to understand the concept of, as a leader in entrepreneurship, I need to understand, when am I expanding at the right pace, or when am I contracting? When is it good to, understand? So I just want to know, what is your take perhaps regarding, maybe talk about what eHub is doing, and speaking about expansion and also contraction that has taken place and how you guys have done that.
Thanks for that question as well. Again, there are two or so questions in there. So the first thing for us, maybe let me start off from an eHub perspective.
Yeah.
In eHub perspective, our aim or our purpose or our mission is such that we want to ensure that every entrepreneur or aspiring entrepreneur takes a confident step towards the next step of their journey.
Yeah.
So let's talk of an aspiring entrepreneur in the logistics industry. Where do they go to if they want to find out how to start their business or how to start in their space? Those might get me a couple of answers. Maybe Google, maybe a friend, or maybe an uncle, right? Similarly, let's talk about someone who has already started in the industry, in the logistics industry. Maybe they're 2 years in and they've been figuring it out as they go. What do they need to know, or how do they scale up to the next level? That again might solicit different responses from different people. Maybe they might want to find a business coach, or maybe they might just want to ask their uncle who has been running a business that is now profitable and stable for years. Again, is that the best opportunity, or is that the best solution that they could ever have? And then let's talk about an example, the DHL of this industry. They have been in this industry for a long time. They are possibly leaders in that space. But now, where do they go to if they want to uplift other people in that space, in that industry, or in that market? Again, it's as a result as who do they know who's coming up in that space. So as the eHub, we're coming to cement reliable relationships in between each segment, where an aspiring entrepreneur is connected to a startup entrepreneur so that they don't have to repeat the same mistakes that this startup entrepreneur experienced. because the more we catalyze that experience, the more we are able to have more entrepreneurs coming in and succeeding. We've heard that 80 to 90% of small businesses fail within their first 2 years. So if we're able to just assist aspiring entrepreneurs cross over the first 2 years of their business with confidence, we're likely to be able to make a difference. And for that aspiring or that startup entrepreneur who's ready to scale up, how about we help them connect with the industry expert in that space so they can get mentorship, guidance as to how they can calculatively step up or scale up such that they don't have to fall hard simply because they scaled up too early. Yeah. And if we are able to be a part of that connection, we have done our part. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, what are we looking at? We're looking at a business that is not only going to serve the CEO or at least its employees, but it's going to be serving the community at large. Because we believe that if it takes a village to raise a child, then it also takes an eHub to raise a business. So I hope that gives you context as to what, as the eHub, we are working towards ensuring. The result of all that becomes the African whose plight, such as crime, abuse, and poverty, is alleviated simply because more people are in entrepreneurship and unemployment rates are lower. So I hope that we look into that as a business or as a hub. But speaking to your question directly around how do we identify when to scale up and when not to scale up perhaps, or when to contract or just keep it at that level. Part of it is involving your ability to firstly observe what is happening around you. A lot of us are so cornered that our exposure is limited. And the main reason why our exposure is limited is because we are not stretching out. And this is maybe we're not engaging in profitable networking, where we're seeing how other people are doing it and having authentic, honest conversations, which is possibly why we as the eHub, just like as you're doing, we engage people on a monthly basis to have these conversations. Because these conversations are the beginning of our ability to just stretch out and understand what might I be missing and who can I collaborate with.
Yeah.
Speaking of collaboration, that's the second element that might be essential for us to be able to include in our processes. Too often, we want to walk on this journey alone. And like we always say, and like we've always known, alone, we can do so little, but together we can do so much. And sometimes we just need to learn to collaborate and work together to achieve a certain purpose, which might also take you to the next level of your business. So those are the two reasons, two things that I would believe entrepreneurs might want to consider before they just venture into scaling up or getting to this point of contracting, if any case. Yeah. I hope that answers as well.
Fantastic. And I love the fact that we can have a discussion regarding that as well, because it's a difficult thing because we shy away from having these discussions and really addressing it. And over the past couple of weeks, we've had interesting discussions with we had a chief economist, we had a couple of brilliant speakers that came on board, and you have also with the eHub, you guys have really entered into that fray of really giving people content that they can trust and that they can rely on, and they can really do proper entrepreneurship and business development. Well, no, it's very interesting to look at the age gap between people that sit on different boards and different sectors and all that stuff. And, sometimes the age thing becomes a real issue. You've got a CEO that is 55 years old, and then he's competing with the CEO that is 45 years old. He immediately feels that there's obviously a competitive nature, which is there as well, but because he's a bit younger than I am, he doesn't know as much as I do. I've been in business more than what you have, that type of vibe. So maybe if you can share a bit with regard to leadership and what constitutes, according to age and all of that, for you, when you look at someone that is young and is an entrepreneur and they're able to do good work, and then they get criticized by the older folk that have been there for a longer time. What is your take on the relationship between young and old entrepreneurs and leadership development that takes place? Maybe if you want to share a bit on that as well.
I love that question because I'm an advocate for millennial leadership anyway. So one of the big things that I always also share is we need each other. We cannot do without each other, and we need to create a space that is inclusive and not exclusive. And that's more of what I believe leadership is all about. And similarly, in this entrepreneurship space, we also need a space that is inclusive of whether gender, whether race, whether culture, whatsoever. We need an inclusive space, because once we create that inclusive space, we create an ecosystem that trades and works together. Now, a lot of times, and I'll take you to my story when I started in training and development. I remember vividly a few years back when I started, I'm a millennial. And when the moment I walked into a room of 10-year-old or 10-year experienced business people or people who were in corporate, and they would look at each other, wonder, what is it that they possibly are going to learn from this young juvenile that has just walked into the room preparing to present a course for them? Interestingly, it was one of the experiences I had to take. At some point, I had to learn to wear a tie. And for those that are outside South Africa, you might think it's normal to wear a tie, but you might want to realize that if you're not necessarily in the financial sector, wearing a tie and a shirt with the collar like this might be too formal, and a jacket, by the way, might be too formal, especially when coming for a training session. So in my case, I almost felt the need to wear a tie, keep my beard, grow my hair so that I could look a little bit older so that I could be accepted. Now, here's the first thing, or here's the first lesson behind that for me. I'm interested in ensuring that I deliver value. But for you to deliver value, there must be interest. And I, as the person who is interested in delivering that value, have to draw that interest. So I could have gone in my t-shirts or whatever the case may be. I could have stuck to my guns. But at that point in time, I might have had a challenge in getting the responses that I was looking for. Or I might have had a challenge or a block. So I might have been easily washed out, desponded, or rejected by the system. But me changing it to try and somewhat suit into what they're looking for, I was able to gain buy-in, which is essential in any case. And from there on, through the engagements, I would realize that somewhat possibly after the tea break, I no longer have to be wearing my jacket. All of a sudden, I can remove my jacket and we can engage, because now we're having conversation and there's some sense of value. So similarly, as we always say, that sometimes it's the perception that counts first. Once your perception is good, then we're looking into it. A number of our millennial leaders or a number of young leaders don't care about that perception. They're so hell-bent on wanting to prove a point that we miss out on just at least meeting the older folk halfway. So that's the first thing that we might want to rethink. At this point in time, get the buy-in, then change the scope of how you would want things happening. But if you don't have the buy-in, it might be a big challenge for you to get the scope. And sometimes know your fight. Know what it is that you want as an outcome. And I always ask people, before you get into any conflicting situation, key question: what outcome do you want to get out of it? And the immediate point where you are able to answer that, your approach might be different. It might be different in the way you do things. And then following on that, the last thing that maybe you might want to think about is, in a space where we've got an entrepreneur who's young and possibly not so clear, the experience does count, but that doesn't mean they cannot do the work. So what we might want to create as a system is a system where the juveniles who've got energy and enthusiasm to run around and do certain things might want to reach out to the mentors who have been in this industry for 20 years, not only for them to be told what to do, but to be shared and almost apply the principles that we've even learned in our own history, where we pass on information through oral tradition. If I could be told that we had a pandemic and this is how it was treated, or this is how things went about, I may have been able or future fit for me to future-proof my business. But because I thought I knew it all and I worked with it in my own way, I may have lost on an opportunity to remain sustainable as a business and had to close my doors halfway through this season. It is essential for us to create that ecosystem that connects the young entrepreneurs and the mature entrepreneurs and make them come together to work together. There is no better thing than collaboration among the different generations that we find ourselves in. And only then will we be able to see more successes in what we're doing. I hope that answers it again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Andrew, for that. I enjoy the fact that we can have a discussion about these particular aspects, because it's part of the leadership that takes place within entrepreneurship. And as I've mentioned again, we don't always have these conversations out in the open, because we think we're not supposed to talk about these things because people already know it. People don't always know it. They don't always know it. But thanks so much for sharing that. And as I've mentioned, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to open up the floor just for some questions from the everyone that has joined in. And what I'm going to actually do is just for more interaction. And as I always enjoy interaction as well. So what I'm going to do is, Zahir Adam, if you would like to just perhaps unmute yourself and then just raise the question that you have shared just with Andrew. And then as well, I see there's I'm not exactly sure what your name is, sir, but I think it's Helper. Maybe just after Zahir is done, you can also just unmute yourself and then ask your question. And Andrew, you've got the opportunity to then just reply to those questions. They are in the comment section as well. But Zahir, I'm going to give you an opportunity. And then the gentleman that is titled here as Helper, please also then follow after Zahir. Thank you so much.
Andrew, thank you very much for those wise words. From my side, various types of leaders exist. And none of which can say is right and wrong. There's never a right and wrong. It's just leadership style. And the world is transforming rapidly. What leadership traits do you consider to be best to carry us through this change and transformation to lead us ahead?
Thank you for your questions, Zahir. I think if you were to ask me, I would say the world is a very big place and different shoes are fit for different tracks that we have. In our continent, which is what I think I take more interest in, we need more of servant leadership. And servant leadership simply because we need to start thinking more than just about ourselves. Even in entrepreneurship currently, we find that we are venturing into entrepreneurship not because we want to necessarily change the world in one way or the other, but simply because we need to feed our families and the people around us in our community, if at all we think as far as our community. So if we were to apply a little bit of servant leadership where we think about everything around service and ensuring that the next person that we have is in a position that we are able to just help them gain something, we might be in a position where we're looking into having a better impact in passing on the baton or in passing on the skills and knowledge that we have. So servant leadership is the heart, it is at the heart of everything. Considering that there is, in a trait perspective, we would want to look into our ability to just think about some of the elements that I spoke about, having the visionary aspects behind our capacity to contribute and share ideas. When we look into this idea of service, we always talk about our clients or our offering being really shared for other clients or customers. We always think about it being priority being given to our clients, but more often than not, we're always thinking about how can I make the most profit? How can I ensure that I make the most out of this situation? And what do I need to do to ensure that I keep making money as an entrepreneur? And very little about what can I do to keep contributing to the community, to the society at large. And if we were to apply servant leadership, I strongly believe that we would be in a better position to serve those continent. As for the world, different cases for different situations. That's my response. I hope that responds to your question.
Thank you, Andrew. That was great. Thanks.
Awesome. As I mentioned, there's a gentleman titled Helper. Would you please just raise your question to our guest, and then he can answer that. Thank you so much. Please tell us what your name is as well, please, if that is your name.
Sure. Thanks. It's quite interesting that my name is quite strange, eh?
Yeah. No, not strange. I just wanted to just get clarity. I don't want to introduce people as something. You're like, Renaldo. What
No. No, that's fine. Okay, sure. Thanks, Andrew, for the presentation. Such a brilliant piece. I just had a simple question regarding entrepreneurship. I'm doing sort of research focusing on that. So it's quite interesting that actually South Africa has got one of highest mortality rates of the operating business and also lowest rate in terms of total early stage entrepreneurial rate, if you check from the Global Entrepreneurship Monitoring Report. And my concern is this seems to be quite a perennial challenge. There seem to be no solution in sight at the moment. If anything, the failure rate continues since 94. And the problems are almost like common, you can guess them, access to finance, funding, but there seem to be nothing that is significant addressing these problems. What do you think could be the fundamental drivers of entrepreneurial, failure and early stage business discontinuation in South Africa?
Beautiful question, and it's good to be connecting with you from this side of the conversation. I feel a lot of times it's our mindset getting into something always determines the outcome that we get out of it. Too often, we find ourselves as entrepreneurs, like I said earlier on the earlier question, that we find ourselves looking into getting into entrepreneurship because either I'm frustrated with my boss at work and I'm actually good at what I do. Let me go and start my own enterprise. And when they do so, or when Andrew does so in his own way, what happens is he's not prepared for the road that he's getting himself into. On the other side, you find that we also have people who get an opportunity, either because of their status or maybe because of the opening that they have seen, or someone who has connected them. And again, that person is not prepared as to how much work they might have to be putting in that space. If we get to look at these two different people, we might come to the same standpoint that the mindset we take in when we start something almost really determines the outcome that we get. So for me, the foundation behind any entrepreneurial success is about the mindset that you get in with it. Busi Terekwa shares on a TED talk around about small businesses, and he shares about how essential it is for us as entrepreneurs to be able to identify to almost have a clearer outcome or a bigger philosophy of what it is that we want to be achieving at the end of the day. Because, for instance, we quit or we lose out because maybe we were taught or told that if you start your business in this way, you are likely to get funding. Now, let's look at it. Is funding what an entrepreneur really needs if they don't even have clients or a market? Then you get the funding, we squander it because in our cases, in our communities, the ideal entrepreneur or the successful entrepreneur drives a Lamborghini, stays in a nice mansion, and definitely eats out in the best restaurants in town. Now, is that entrepreneurship? And then third and foremost, the entrepreneur that we've experienced says or thinks that now they've got all the time in the world to do what they would love to do. They've gotten a tender and that they've been paid 50% upfront. And instead of investing that 50% in ensuring that the processes are run in time or they follow through within a certain time frame, they decide to go on holiday. These are social economic challenges that we are facing, that we're also dealing with, where we are now simply facing a challenge as to whether what is our focus and what is it that we're getting into. At the eHub, one of the things that we do is before you get into the program, we do an e-mindset course, just to get you to be prepared that you are going to need to do long hours. You are going to need to ensure that there are times where you're going to get no's and fail. There are times where you're going to have to spend more than you planned to spend. So once you are clear on that, is this still the journey that you want to take? Then at least you are looking towards getting a success. But now, our challenge right now, as it is, not only in South Africa, I believe, but in many other parts of our continent, is simply that we are looking for quick returns, quick solutions for a long-term need that might be existing at this present time. And I don't think there is a quick fix to it. Even our Bibles do share that that might not be a solution. I hope that answers your question. There is no quick fix for a long-term need. Mr. Joe, I hope that answers your question.
Sure, yeah, definitely. Thanks for that, and I agree 100%. I think especially on the mindset, you really said what I think could be one of the things. Thanks for the response. I think it relates to some of the issues that has to be attended to by entrepreneurs.
It's a
Thank you.
pleasure.
Thank you so much. Then there's one more, Victor. I'm just going to allow, there's one more question that we're going to be taking from the audience, and then we're going to have our closing remarks and then wrap up. So Victor, you're welcome to just say that or pose the last question to our guest before we close. Thank you so much, Victor.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Hi, okay. Hey, Andrew, thank you so much for the fantastic chat. Really informative. I just want to drop a rather personal case study and talk about it. In 2018, a friend of mine started a tutoring company, right? And the aim was for the first 2 years at least to work with underprivileged, disadvantaged schools and build a reputable profile from that before merging with most city schools, right? So this question ties particularly with the leadership, the payment piece that you mentioned, between servant leadership and profit-driven leadership. Is there a healthy balance that we can strike there? Or you have to settle, because I'm of the opinion that the two are inclusive, but if, for example, if I had started with a profit-driven type of leadership in 2018, instead of me migrating to disadvantaged place, you know what I mean? So I just want to get to when it comes to the need for a profit-driven leadership to maintain the change that you start, because to maintain it, we're going to need, but also sort of being loyal to the cause and being loyal to why you started in the first place. You know what I mean? I think that's.
I hope I got your question right. So just to almost paraphrase what you're asking, you had a friend who started their business in 2018. It was a tutoring company, and in 2 years later, they shifted. I think that's what I got. It was breaking a little bit. They shifted into different schools because of possible an element around to try and drive it into a profit-making setting, I suppose. And your question really stems of, is there a balance that we can strike between driving a cause that we had from the onset, as well as also making sure that we gain profit out of it? I'm not sure if I got that correctly.
Yeah, I think cutting. I think my metric is a bit bad. Okay, when I started this company, and we had planned that in 2 years we're going to be focusing on disadvantaged schools to build a profile and to attract funding partnership. And then, so this is in a pre-pandemic context. Now, when the pandemic happened, we had to cease all operations, and now we're looking into post-COVID. And we decided sort of jotting and servant leadership is in totality what we should be striving for, or we should rather drive for profits now and then revert back to servant leadership in entrepreneurship. So that's, I think, makes sense.
Okay, I assume I may have gotten the gist of the question, and I'll try and answer accordingly. If not, maybe we can take it offline after this, or it can be put in text. But from what I gather, it's, should we be driving towards our cause, which is servant leadership, or almost serving the community right now and tutoring underprivileged students, or should we work towards profit and then do servant leadership later on? And my view around that, first of all, to start off, is you can do both. When we talk of servant leadership, it's not necessarily about that you are doing everything for free. You cannot give what you don't have, and you cannot, it's not sustainable if you don't have the backing or the support behind that. So you can only do it to a certain level, but maybe you might want to start thinking about, when you identify even the partnerships, are you doing your best to serve at the possible capacity that you have? when we're looking into this, it's almost like starting a business, and we've got so many social entrepreneurs in that very same space who are focused on ensuring the welfare of the society that they are looking out for or looking after. And part of it is they're supported by many institutions that are also supporting this. And you have had of many environments or settings where some of these businesses have gone to even contribute to the society. Case in point, you want to try and see you're supporting students, but there is a certain service or a certain provision that you can even offer to companies or corporates that might also show as their way of supporting your non-profit initiative, or at least showing your support for another institution. And it doesn't necessarily have to come from the students themselves. It can even come from the organizations that you partner in. But also, on the other hand, there's another method or mode that you can continuously consider. Your aim becomes the big end in sight. And how do you get there? You might want to start now ensuring that maybe you've got an approach or a model that speaks to the people, or to at least the stakeholders, that will give you the enough to fill your cup so that you can deposit in the other, in your key market area or in your key interests, which is the students, so, or the underprivileged setting. And by so doing, you then identify the organizations that are in the same mission as you, and you collaborate. I think there's very little conversation around collaboration in the sense of the mission, as well as the support, the infrastructure, the resources that might be made available, simply because of the mission that you share. And hence I said, sometimes it's imperative for us to be able to identify who is doing it, or who can we work with to get the necessary requirements that we need to be able to flourish, and then we work together accordingly. I'm sorry I couldn't get you. I'm supposed maybe it's my internet that's a little bit breaking, but I hope this almost gives you an idea of how you can work around it. You can start off with your cause simply by ensuring that from the onset you partner with the kids, and it doesn't necessarily mean just because it's service driven, it is less profit driven. It can be service driven as long as you give the quality service, the utmost service, and you're fulfilled at the end of the day. I'm certain that that also too might draw in. After all, Zig Ziglar says, if you help enough people achieve what they want, you too might also achieve what you want. So if your business helps enough of those underprivileged students get what they want, you too might also get what you want, which might be profit. I hope that answers your question somewhat.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for taking part in the question and answer segment of our webinars with our guest tonight, Andrew. Thank you so much, Andrew, for answering the questions and being so kind as to giving us some of your wisdom and your knowledge, and also applying it in this webinar as well. Andrew, I'm going to give you just an opportunity to have some closing remarks from your side, if you'd just like to just share some closing remarks.
Thank you very much for hosting me this evening. It was a privilege, a pleasure, and I also enjoyed interacting with you. I would love to encourage that wherever you are, don't let the ripple end at your doorstep. Pass the button on. Whatever you have, pass it on to someone else who might be in need of it. It may be simply through a conversation. It may be simply through support, and not necessarily financial support, but sometimes the spirit support that we might need. Entrepreneurship may be a lonely sport, but not if you participate in that sport too. All the best in your ventures. Over to you. Thank you.
Mr. Andrew Tsuro, thank you so much for giving us an in-depth perspective on leadership in entrepreneurship. Thank you, sir. The Free State Chamber of Commerce and Industry is calling you to action. We advocate and we make sure that you get engagements with business owners, with different stakeholders within the government, and also within the different companies that we find in the Free State context. It is absolutely amazing to have a main objective, which is to advocate for economic growth and development within the Free State. We provide you with a various couple of membership types that we would like you to go make sure that you have a look at. They are all found on our website that you can follow, www.fscci.co.za, where you can understand how the Free State Chamber of Commerce and Industry is allowing you to see the growth within your leadership and within being an entrepreneur, but also being able to connect with the correct people. There are various offers and benefits that we would like you to make sure that you go take attention to. There are different value propositions that we've structured and make sure that you look at where you fit into the fray. There are various payment options that you can look at, also based on what is your need. The Free State Chamber of Commerce and Industry's main objective is to advocate for economic growth and development and employment within the region. Our board consists out of our president, which is Thabo Pitse. He is the CEO of Sage Africa, also serial entrepreneur. We've got our vice first president, which is Charlie Naidu, and she's also very heavily involved in entrepreneurship development, but also from an advocate perspective, and also being able to assist with the legal obligations and also understanding that. Then we've got Jaco Grobler, that's our treasurer, chartered accountant specialist in financial management and services. Andor van der Linde, that is our secretary. Also with Sanet van Jerden, that's also assisting us regarding that, and myself, Free State Chamber of Commerce and Industry CEO Renaldo Meyer. It is an absolute pleasure to have had you on the show. See you next time.